In this video I'm going to be going in depth on everything I know about blinding and Dead by Daylight. This video is going to be very technical. I'm going to be explaining blinding basics, the timing of normal flashlight saves, CJ techs, saves involving lockers and grabs, using teamwork, killer specific information, firecrackers and flashbangs, and a lot of obscure tricks that not many know of. But first, let's get into items, perks, and add-ons. Now, the best possible item and add-on combination for flashlights is the utility flashlight with a green tier battery and the low amp filament, as it offers the most amount of battery. You are always going to want to use batteries whenever you can. Alternatively, however, you can use things that extend the time a killer is blind and how bright the blind is on the killer's screen, like the odd bulb and intense halogen combination, for example. Next is the grip add-ons. They don't offer much of an advantage, but if you're having trouble with the accuracy in your utility flashlight, for example, using a grip may help, or switching to the sports flashlight, which has a grip built in. Finally, the lens add-ons, which are rarely used, do offer some interesting blinding angles. Here's a comparison of the normal flashlight beam, the wide lens, the focus lens, and the high-end sapphire lens. Now let's get into perks. This is usually what I run for this sort of thing, but the best perks for a flashlight save build will always vary. Personally, I think Iron Will is the most important for this. You're probably going to want to run an aura perk if you are not in a survive with friends, such as Bond or Empathy. Bond is my personal choice, but if you're experienced enough, you do not have to run either perks. You can simply rely on the killer's terror radius and your own instincts. If you don't run aura perks, however, you need to keep in mind the stealth killers with a small terror radius or none whatsoever. It's going to be even more difficult to flashlight save against these killers, or against certain add-ons and perks that manipulate their terror radius. Also, if you don't have a good item and add-on combination resulting in low battery, it might be worth running item charge perks, such as Streetwise and Built to Last. Keep in mind there's also killer perks that affect flashlights. The first two being Shadowborn and Lightborn. Shadowborn being a net positive for flashlights, as it will allow you a wider angle to achieve a blind from. However, Lightborn will completely nullify your flashlight. The next two killer perks are Franklin's Demise and Overwhelming Presence. These two perks either make you drop your flashlight or drain your battery. There's also, of course, killer perks that can disrupt your aura reading ability, so if you're running Bond or Empathy, you need to be careful. And an extra side note, watch out for Starstruck, as it will put you in the exposed status effect if you're attempting to flashlight save. Also, Strider, as the killer is more likely to hear you nearby, especially if you're injured. Now let's get into using our flashlight. I'll have this video split into 6 parts: basic, intermediate, advanced, a killer specific section, other blinding items, and finally, miscellaneous information. The most basic techniques. Let's start with blinding at pallets. This can allow one to either run away from the killer or alternatively, run past them and behind them. Just a quick note, watch out for brutal strength's increase in pallet kicking speed. It's also possible to blind on windows as the killer is vaulting them. Be careful of things that make the killer vault faster, like tier 3 Myers, cloaked wraiths, or various other kinds of perks and add-ons. Also, certain killers vault differently. The most notable is the Demogorgon. Be prepared for weird vaulting animations. Or even just after they break a door. Now let's get into the intermediate level. I want to preface this by saying, if you're following your injured teammate to flashlight save them, the most important thing to remember is to not be seen by the killer. If the killer sees you closing in for a save and downs your teammate, he is a lot less likely to pick them up and will probably look around first, or bait the pickup by standing over the down survivor. There's also a high chance that if your teammate goes down against a wall, the killer will instantly pick them up facing towards the wall to prevent the save completely. As a general rule of thumb, always move out in the open away from walls if you are the one going down, to make room for a flashlight save. So let's see how the flashlight save is normally done. This is always the point in the killer's animation at which you want to start blinding them. And of course this point looks different depending on what killer you were playing against, but they all pose in a similar fashion as this. If you want to be super technical, this point is about 2 seconds in to a 3-second long pickup animation. Don't worry too much and just practice until this timing becomes a natural muscle memory. Next, we have chain blinds. If you're too early to a flashlight save and miss the timing, you can always try chaining the blind to get it successfully the second time around. Another way to prevent flashlight save mistakes is by flickering. If you're too early to a save, you can simply let go for a split second and then start blinding again so you do not blind the killer too early. Utilizing Dead Hard and Sprint Burst to catch up to the killer picking someone up can be very useful. You'll end up using it more than you expect.
Oh.
Now, more interestingly, it's possible to Dead Hard through the killer to achieve a flashlight save. Now we'll be getting into more advanced techniques. Holding opposite blinding angles with your teammates can be extremely useful. Having one teammate in front of the killer and one behind them as they're picking someone up makes it almost guaranteed that you will secure a save.
You got it?
Oh my god!
Thank God you did that.
Crossing flashlight beams with your teammates. Usually if this happens with a random survivor, they will end up messing up the timing of your flashlight save. But you can use this to your advantage if you're playing with friends. The time to blind is cut in half when 2 people are blinding the killer. It's even faster if there's more than 2 players blinding. And another note, crossing flashlight beams around corners is a greatly effective way to surprise the killer and get an easy save. Probably the most well-known, more advanced technique is the infamous CJ tech, named after the Dead by Daylight player who popularized it. Simply cancelling a killer's prompt, such as breaking a pallet, with the downed survivor in front of said pallet will force him to pick the survivor up, giving you the time to flashlight save.
Alright. I'm spamming.
To make this technique even better, you can try fake blinding the killer after you stun them with the pallet, preparing for a CJ tech. This often confuses killers and makes them press their pallet breaking prompt.
Okay.
You can even CJ tech on lockers. If your down teammate crawls up against the locker that you're inside, and you jump out at the same time, the killer tries to take you out of it.
Oh, whoa.
It's also possible to do this on windows with a down survivor under one, although this is quite hard to time properly. This is much easier with perks that speed up your vaulting speed like Resilience or Spine Shield, or even having a teammate behind you ready to blind the killer after you vault. Now let's get into locker saves. If you know your teammate is about to be grabbed out of a locker, you can stand at the right angle and save them before the killer is able to react. This is where audio becomes very important. You need to listen for the creak of the locker closing to begin, then start blinding the killer to get this right. Also keep in mind this does not work on every locker. The locker usually needs to have a very open area from the left or right to blind from. Another side note, against specific killers such as Ghostface or Pyramid Head or the Blight, you can almost never pull off a locker save because of how they open lockers. Also, if you are locker saving a teammate in the shack locker close to the door, make sure you are inside the shack. If you are outside, it will not work.
Ooh, nice.
Theoretically, locker saves can go on forever as long as you have battery and a double locker setup. For example, if two lockers are next to each other and both teammates keep entering them, the killer has no choice but to keep opening them. Now let's get into grab saves, including their timing. Grab saves can occur on windows, pallets, generators, and lockers. Here is when you want to start blinding on a grab save, or 1.5 seconds into a 2.5 second animation. Next up is something a bit new, saving through small cracks. This is possible on so many areas in Dead by Daylight, but let me just show you a few of many that exist. As a side note, you used to be able to save through the cracks of the closed shack window, perpendicular to the open one. But as of the 5th anniversary patch of 2021, this has been removed. Next are elevation saves, pretty self-explanatory. It's possible to start blinding the killer mid-air from an elevated point and finish the save on the ground. Great for getting an angle if the killer is turned away from you, and he's below you. Pretty situational though.
Alright.
Now let's talk about some killer-specific things. The first and most well-known is the Wraith's Cloak Burn. While uncloaking, the Wraith can be burnt with one's flashlight. This needs to be done quite early to succeed. Even if you are early, it won't always be successful, as the Wraith has uncloak speed add-ons. Every type of killer burn I mentioned can have its speed doubled or tripled when doing it with more people, just like normal blinding. Next is the nurse. While the nurse is holding her blink, you can shine your flashlight anywhere on her body to cancel the blink, as well as stunning her for a small while. This is quite hard to do, however, as you need to hold your flashlight on them for a long time. It's rarely worth doing, in my opinion. You can also prevent a nurse's next blink by shining your flashlight on them whilst they attempt their next blink within a chain. Can blink?
I could hardly blink properly then.
Now on to everyone's favorite killer, the spirit. You can blind the spirit whilst they are phasing if they are looking at your beam mid-phase. It's a bit of a last resort, but it works.
Phase walker.
You can also remove a spirit's husk while they are phasing. This is very useful for not only helping yourself hear her phasing sound, but help your teammates hear it as well. It can also be used to counter a spirit faking their phasing by standing still. Next up is the hack. The hack's traps can be removed with a flashlight. I'm sure most people know this. My favorite killer-specific blinding trick involves the Legion. If you blind the Legion in their fatal frenzy, you can actually cancel their power. This can be done more effectively as they vault windows and pallets. Just make sure you don't get hit. Onto Charlotte and Victor. You can blind Charlotte's baby, Victor, with your flashlight. However, this can prove quite difficult. Nemesis. You can blind zombies to temporarily stun them. The Death Slinger. You can get a free blind on the Slinger while he's reeling someone in with his harpoon. Kind of an awkward trick, but it can actually help your teammate gain some distance from him. The Demogorgon. You can easily blind the Demogorgon just after they do their Shred special attack. Other blinding items. Of course, not only the flashlight can blind. There's also various kinds of firecrackers and flashbangs. Most of the things I've described in this video can be performed with both of these items, however, much less effectively. They can also blind survivors. Also, their timing is much different from the timing of the flashlight. Here you can see for yourself. This is the point at which you want to drop your firecracker or flashbangs. 1 second in to the 4-second pickup animation. It's the earliest we've seen so far. Here's what a CJ tech looks like using a flashbang. And the same thing using firecrackers. Both of these items are incredibly generous in the angles it gives you to blind the killer. For example, if a killer is looking against a wall to try and prevent a blind, it's still possible to achieve a save. Another neat trick with these items are hook block saves. If you block a hook and prevent your teammate from being hooked, you can drop your flashbang or firecracker for an easy save, since it's unlikely they will notice you have one. Here's some miscellaneous fun things I never mentioned. Recently discovered, you can blind through 3 windows on Dead Dog Saloon, making for some interesting saves. Flicking your flashlight and then pressing your dead hard button is a great way to quickly change directions and make your dead hard much more effective. Blinding the killer as he's hooking someone can make for an easy unhook if you play it smart. However, it can be quite risky. You can also utilize the bushes on Dead Dog Saloon for easier flashlight saves. It's fortunate. Yo, the bush is a flashlight? That's crazy, bro. A funny thing completely unnecessary for style points are 360 saves. Yo, what's up, Brandon? I only just saw that. Got it? Let's fucking go. If you have the perk Unbreakable and you are down next to somebody being picked up, you can get yourself up and flashlight save your teammate if you time it correctly.
I'm waiting for her to pick up one of you.
Oh.
Oh, you got up?
Oh.
Oh.
Let's go. Blinding the killer as they're kicking generators. This is pretty easy to do. Just keep in mind brutal strength, and that this only works on specific taller killers. Also, a quick note on blinding the killer on stairs. This has always been quite finicky in my opinion. Just a word of caution if you end up in this situation, especially on the basement stairs. So that covers just about everything about blinding. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you learned something from this video. Please leave a like or subscribe if you enjoyed it. Also, if you have any questions, leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to try and answer them. I'll see you guys in the next one.